So good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar with Mirriad. We're delighted to have Stephan Beringer, CEO, and David Dorans, Finance Director, who are going to provide a brief introduction to the company and then present the half-year results. Just a couple of admin points before I hand over to Stephan. Firstly, everyone is on listen-only mode, but if you do want to ask a question, please just type into the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We've had a couple of questions sent in ahead of time, and we will cover all questions at the end of the presentation. And the format today is a presentation from Stephan and David. This will last approximately 30 minutes, and then we'll take all questions at the end. And following the meeting, you'll be redirected to a short survey, and it would be really appreciated if you could spend a few moments completing this. I think that's all the admin. So without further delay, could I hand over to Stephan to take us through today's presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Stephan. I'm the CEO of Mirriad. I joined at the end of 2018, coming from a big advertising holding company, and I have a pretty long advertising background. So I've worked for Publicis Group, Omnicom Group, and I've done many things before joining Mirriad with the ambition to transform advertising. With me is David Dorans, Chief Financial Officer, who's been with Mirriad, and I hope it's okay, David, I'm doing the intro for you, for a little bit longer than I have. David has a massive background in media agencies and in broadcasting, on top of his finance qualification. So a perfect partner in crime. And so let's just kick this off and talk a little bit about the agenda very quickly. We'll do, as Alex just said, a very brief introduction, then talk about the acceleration we're currently going through. David then will take over to talk about the H1 2020 numbers, and then I'll come back to speak about what our objectives are for this year. And then, we, as Alex said, we're open for questions. So we'll try to do this in 30 minutes. For those who don't know Mirriad, so the company was founded a few years ago, almost a decade ago, and really started as a visual effects company delivering very amazing visual effects for feature films. And it became very famous for one project it actually did when it delivered the special effects for a movie called The Black Swan with Natalie Portman. For those who have seen the movie, Natalie Portman dances at the end, and suddenly she develops feathers and wings, and that's basically our technology. Not basically, that is our technology doing it. And two things are really important to understand there. Number one is just the fact that you know it looks absolutely realistic, the job that we've done. And secondly, and this is what very few people know, it has been done very quickly, thanks to this very special technology that we have at the core. And that has then led to you know, our chief scientist Phil receiving an Academy Award back in the days, and actually last year, still for the same work, not Black Swan, but for the tech he developed, he won an Emmy. So very powerful technology that then was taken further to allow advertisers, and that's now really the business we're in today, to allow advertisers to place products, branding, messaging, anything that really has the ability to engage with audiences in content. Okay, so in other words, in television series or feature films, what have you not, and you'll see examples that make it much clearer. So before I start a small video that will explain a few things quite nicely, just to ground where we are. We're based in the UK, in London, from where we also operate the EMEA markets. We're AIM listed, operating in China, where we have a strong partnership with a company called Tencent Video, which is the leading streaming company in China. And we're operating out of New York for the United States. So now we will play a 1.5 minutes video, again, which captures quite well what we do, how we're progressing, and the magic that we're able to deliver to the market.
We do something quite magical. Mirriad was born as a visual effects technology company delivering award-winning solutions for feature films, essentially allowing to seamlessly insert any kind of image into the footage after production.
Elle est anglaise, elle s'appelle Mirriad et elle réinvente de manière plutôt troublante le placement de produits.
So the opportunity to ultimately place objects and branding into scenes and with variations depending on the audience who's watching it is a totally new opportunity.
So I've been looking at a company that's used AI to put ads in the footage that we're already watching.
I thought this one was quite an interesting observation here by the AI, which is in the background. It's actually a relatively sort of obvious place to put something, but you might not as a human have necessarily said, oh, you know, let's place this in the background and cover that window.
All right. So, so here I'd like to explain briefly how actually our technology and the platform works. And maybe I can invite you to look at the little graph on the left-hand side. So just imagine you are a broadcasting company or a video streaming company, and you have content, of course, and you would like to make money with your content. And you have the rights on the content, and what you will do is to basically ship or plug into our platform so that we can ingest, it could be a series or a film that we ingest into our systems, and then our artificial intelligence and the machine learning algorithms will basically run over that content to identify opportunities for brands to be inserted in the content itself, as you have seen, hopefully, in the video now. And the way we like to explain that is really that there's two levels of, in terms of what the engine does. Number one is to really identify the physical placement opportunities, which we call the blue boxing. And you see a little visual on the right-hand side. Literally, this says, there's a wall, there's a table, there's a space where I can place something. And then comes the second layer, which is more the idea of, it's basically the models that identify, is this, what context is this? Is what atmosphere, what emotion is at play? Where will, where's the attention of viewers going, etc. And that is now, how can I say, really the core of the development, also in terms of us driving forward the platform, because what we need to do and will be doing is to fully automate the entire process of understanding where a brand can be placed in its ideal form. Because as a matter of fact, what we're able to do is to identify per piece of content, there's 20 seconds that are suitable for automotive, 300 seconds for food and beverages brand, and 200 seconds for cosmetics. I'm just saying, this is the kind of analysis that our machine learning algorithms are able to provide. And that's the information then that our partner, the broadcaster or the streaming platform, takes to the market. They do the sell to an advertising client, a P&G, or you've seen a couple of names in the video, and they book campaigns. We get the insertion order, and then we render the product or the billboard or whatever into the footage, and we ship it back to our partner. So it's really this closed loop. And as you will imagine, this is literally where the entire development is going in, because that process needs to be automated more and more. And it is really the sort of the new magic, or how can I say, the new black that we're developing, is really to create these contextual algorithms that really will have the ability to place brands the best possible way. So what has happened in the first half of 2020? Oops, that was too fast. We have a partnership, and let's start with that. We have a great partnership in China with Tencent Video, which, think of Tencent Video being Netflix, but Netflix embedded in a bigger group, which could be regarded as the combination of Twitter and Facebook. So with WeChat and all kinds of other streams that they have. And Tencent Video are really a very advanced technology company and platform company. They stream a lot of content, and we've signed an agreement with them last year. And basically, we've been developing the partnership since the last couple of months. We've obviously had some delay because of the pandemic. Tencent, or China in general, came back earlier, and we found ourselves in June really with the first peak month, I should say, where we ran more than 40 campaigns actually in 1 month alone. Which was kind of the tipping point in the relationship, because this has been now the result of the entire Tencent sales organization getting behind the Mirriad proposition, then strategically in terms of the go-to-market, that they've really embedded it at the center of the entire advertising proposition. And so now we are really in the market as the in-video advertising solution for the entire Tencent world. And what is happening now, I'm just preempting a little bit what will happen in this half of the year, or the remainder of the year, is that they are doing two things. They're really pushing for, how can I say, blueprint, lighthouse clients. So basically the number ones in each industry category, and trying to get, big bookings, big campaigns from these major advertisers. So that's the first thing per category. So there's multiple categories, of course. And then the second thing is that in the back end, our solution is now being connected from a data standpoint with other advertising propositions from Tencent. And that is somewhat the future in advertising anyway, because that will allow clients or advertisers to book audiences, and then with in-video, which we represent, that gets connected through social feeds, it gets connected to retargeting campaigns, etc., all on the basis of the same data, which is obviously very, very fascinating. So before I keep talking, I'll just run this video, which hopefully will give you a good sense of the intensity, but also from a quality standpoint. Hopefully it will get you excited in terms of the amazing work that we're already able to do, and this at scale with a platform that is really able to automate all these things. And we didn't increase any manpower, had nothing to do. It's literally our platform now delivering these things. Okay. No sound, no sound. Here we go. All right. So the solution, we've spoken about that since quite some time now, is really a solution that allows to engage viewers in a non-disruptive manner in the content itself. And that is obviously comes at a time where viewers of broadcast television or streaming or online video for the matter, really have developed an allergy, an aversion against being interrupted and disrupted by advertising. We like to say that the skip ad button is really probably the most utilized feature in the digital space. And that is an expression of how annoyed people are by ads. And what we do is actually, it's not skippable as a matter of fact, but I think it's more important to say that there's no need to skip us because we have become part of the scenery, and it's just integrates very elegantly and very nicely into the scenery, and so it doesn't annoy anybody and actually enhances the viewing experiences. For the brands and the agencies, we represent, so for the advertisers and the agencies, we represent a very interesting solution because we are able to reach people at their passion points when they're watching something and they're really interested. In other words, we are a new advertising solution that is really able to engage people and really deliver new levels of results, as we'll be seeing later. And for the content industry, we are obviously a very interesting or a key option for the future because advertising in its standard shape and form is losing its relevance and its firepower. And so whoever produces content has two choices, and they're not mutually exclusive, of course. One is to get more subscription revenue, but secondly, to find other means of revenue generations. And basically here we come as now fair to say that we're the market leader, and in giving these companies a new possibility to make money where there was no possibility to make money before, because literally we create the inventory that they sell to advertisers out of the content that they've already paid for. So in a way, you could say this is a net new revenue opportunity. And when we look at the entire, and these are just some facts now that back what I've just said the slide before, but just looking black and white in terms of the numbers that get produced for the industry, and there's obviously many more facts and figures that we could provide, but it's fair to say that the, how can I say, the advertising ecosystem or the approach that has been living or going on for the last decades really is running out of steam, and it's somewhat of a game over because people just don't want to watch ads anymore. They're fleeing, they're going into streaming because they don't get annoyed by the ads. If they see ads, they don't pay attention. And on the right-hand side, there's a very interesting research from Ubiquity, leading media auditing company, who say that 55% or predict a 55% decrease in terms of the commercial impact of television advertising in the UK comparing 2018 with 2022 in the younger audience groups. And that is highly important because for every, or not every, but most marketeers, reaching young audiences who are the ones who determine, is a brand successful or not, is absolutely critical. So now we're seeing black on white that literally television advertising is just not existent anymore in that group. So in terms of the progress we're making on the back of all this, we have last year, we did a very significant strategic reset. We decided many things, and among other things, we decided that we need to have a different go-to-market where we would be involving actively the world of advertisers and their agencies. And we've made a lot of progress there, very massive actually, since a year, a little bit more than a year, in terms of really engaging now and being engaged with very many global advertisers. And what I'd like to point out here is that the quality of these engagements is not anymore on the level of, let's talk theoretically about this nice option of using Mirriad in content. The conversations today are very specific. So these are clients asking us, could you help us, or how could Mirriad help us sell more product this Christmas? how can Mirriad help us, you know, in the next year across many markets or all markets, basically support our key campaigns? How can, you know, Mirriad help drive through the sustainability strategy? So these requests now that we're getting in terms of information or actually proposals are very specific, which is a very good sign in terms of the maturity that we're starting to get to. As a reflection of that development, when we look at the supply side, and we need to have the content suppliers, of course, because that's how we create the inventory that then gets sold to the advertiser. That has developed also extremely dynamically and very strong. And we're now in this position where, especially in the US, which we had determined as our key focus, it was not so emphasized before our strategic reset, that we're really engaged with the majority of the big entertainment companies, including the streaming companies, and that the progress is just super steady. And I should say that we're getting there. We are now with one of the major conglomerates really in a phase of redlining, second round of red lines. We don't see any deal breakers, so this is looking very good, and we're engaged with 4 more on different levels, but very getting very close now. And what we believe is that ultimately, and I should not forget the tier 2 companies. So there's obviously also many other companies that we're getting more and more partnerships with. But these tier 1 companies, we believe, and the moment we have one contract with one of these companies, the others will actually follow, because the market is so competitive that I think, you know, no entertainment company can afford not to have Mirriad when, you know, the biggest competitor actually has it and is servicing the advertisers with it. So there's going to be a big dynamic, a real domino effect. So that's looking very good. And then the next thing that has happened, and I'll touch on that a bit later, is that we are also progressing very well with the world of independent film producers who have realized, you know, there's this interesting thing called Mirriad. We can make money with these guys. We signed a contract with PACT, which is the Association of Film and Television Producers in the UK, who have brought us together with many of the production companies. So we signed a contract with Zigzag, with many others, and basically now entering in that arena as well. Plus, on top of that, and that's the thing I'll discuss later, is really with the music industry, which is becoming a very compelling opportunity. Recognition growing. Some of you will have seen some of these quotes last year. The press is picking us up really in terms of, you know, AI solving for advertising of the future. I'll not go into any of these details, but it's obviously very good to see that you know, we're creating this immense awareness. And then in terms of the results we produced, again, some of you might have seen these or similar ones in the past. Whenever or whatever we do, and whenever Mirriad is utilized to place a brand in the content, the brand KPIs go up. So the brand becomes more known, the brand gets more considered, and in a way, like you see these percentage points increases from blue to orange. So orange is when we enter, you know, that are just massive. And from everything I've learned in 30 years in the industry, is achieving these kind of increases is just unheard of. And the latest that is really helping us a lot in terms of getting, you know, the attention and the interest, and ultimately getting engagements with you know, supply partners, but also the advertisers, is that we can now clearly also demonstrate that we're driving sales. And this is one for one client in the US, massive beverages company, where we can see, and the blue bar, by the way, is audiences who only have been exposed to television advertising, and the orange one is us again. It's television advertising plus Mirriad, where we're literally able to augment the group of high frequency consumers from 40% to 69%, which is obviously an incredible number. And this research, because it's also such a massive company behind it, is literally, you know, that's paving the way now. We have just received 2 weeks ago results from China, where there's a proof that we are I think, tripling or quadrupling purchase intent just by adding Mirriad. I mean, it keeps going on and on and on, and proving that the Mirriad solution is just very, very superior. So, David, now it's your turn, and we'll talk a little bit about numbers.
Thanks very much, Stephan. Hello, everybody. So we're just going to run through these fairly fast. If there are any follow-up questions, then please post them, as Alex talked about. And also, there's more detail on our corporate website, which is mirriadplc.com, where we publish the full RNS. So on this slide, we're showing a financial summary of all the key metrics. As Stephan's mentioned, we're really pleased that we can report a very positive set of results, particularly given the current market conditions. You can see on this slide that there's been a significant improvement in all of the metrics year on year. So starting on the left-hand side, top left, revenues are up 109% year on year. And the next two charts, operating loss and loss for the period, both down by 32%. And that is a combination of this increase in revenue and a reduction in the underlying cost base, which I'll return to in a moment. On the right-hand side of the chart, we can see that the improvement in the P&L metrics has flowed through to the cash. So cash consumption is also down a year on year by almost a quarter. And then two charts focusing on our balance sheet, which is dominated by cash holdings. So it's a very straightforward, simple balance sheet. We raised funds in the market in the summer of 2019, and we are holding significant cash balances. We also reported in the release last week that at the end of August, we're holding £13.3 million in cash on the balance sheet. And then the very final chart on that page, was the loss per share, which has shown a sharp improvement from 7p loss to 2p loss. So moving to the next slide. Thank you, Stephan.
Sorry, David.
That's okay. So Stephan's already referred to the strategic reset that the business undertook in the first quarter of 2019. And during that strategic reset, we significantly simplified the business. And this was to create more focus, but also we wanted to reduce costs. And on this chart, I'm showing a bridge of the administrative costs line, which is the single biggest line in the P&L, which has fallen 1.8 million year on year. And I think this chart very clearly shows that the prime reason for that is a reduction in staff-related costs. And this is down to the restructuring, where we've managed to reduce staff-related costs by £874,000 for the half year. Just turning to the final slide on financials. The company's financial affairs are very, very straightforward. There's nothing exotic at Mirriad in terms of the balance sheet. I've shown here an EBITDA bridge and a cash bridge. We are not capitalizing any of the tech development that we do right now. So very few adjusting items on EBITDA, a small amount of amortization and depreciation, and a small charge for share-based compensation, where we had issued new share option plans for senior staff and directors earlier this year. And on the bottom chart, a very small adjustment for non-cash items, which is around capitalization and depreciation of leases. So that's a very quick run through, but that's the top line on the financials.
Thank you, David. Very few more slides, and then we're done, and just trying to keep in the timing. So second half of the year or remainder of the year, the things that we're trying to get to, or what is set as our objectives. Number one, of course, is to get a signing with one of the tier one players. I've mentioned before that we are deeply engaged with most of them. One is in redlining phase, so we're getting extremely close now. And as I said, once we sign one, we expect really having this domino effect. Driving adoption with advertisers, I guess I don't need to explain that too much in terms of, disseminating more and more the Mirriad solutions, getting more campaigns booked. The point here in terms of exploiting new sources of content really relates, there's a focal area called music, and what has happened here is that the music industry, because live performances, which were the main revenue stream for artists themselves, have just broken away. Nobody performs live at the moment. That artist management companies and the record companies are looking at us as one potential area to mitigate these weaknesses in terms of the revenue downfall. And so now we are in this position of building a proposition in the market, and we are already going out to the market. We have a little video that we'll show you in an instant, with a proposition that really goes across genres, across artists, and across platforms. In other words, we're not only talking about YouTube, but we're also talking about TikTok, we're talking about Instagram, and so forth. You get the point, because artists not only release music videos, they also post a lot of things on their social accounts, and eventually they play live gigs that are actually not really live in most cases, where we could start doing business with them. So this is a very, very interesting proposition that is going out to the market as we speak. We're very confident that we'll be getting some first campaigns booked this year already. And just to add, in terms of the interest of advertisers, it is extremely high, and there's a simple reason to that. We've seen the number before in terms of how, minus 55% in terms of how low the impact is getting in terms of television advertising on younger audiences. The opposite is obviously the case when we think about music and music videos. Just thinking about, Billie Eilish or Ed Sheeran, the numbers these guys achieve in terms of the billions of views, and compare that with the best ever running television series on the planet, there's probably still light years in terms of the gap. So the real thing is really happening there, and we need to be where the young people are, and that's where we're going. Just on a side note, the entire business where we actually own the inventory, because we are working directly with the owner and taking it to the market, represents the opportunity of the direct to advertiser model, which will give us, so it's us having the music video inventory, it's us having the social inventory, taking it to the advertiser and the agencies, selling it to them, puts us obviously in the position that we can, we have more flexibility in terms of the pricing. We control the process. Eventually there's a better control on margins, etc. So there's many advantages there that we're starting to discuss with the agencies especially. And then on innovation, in terms of the tech development side of the equation, we are driving as a continuum, I should say, the further development of the AI to further automate the process, and then the entire stack. What will be coming this year, introduced in China in the first place, is really the addressability, the dynamic delivery of our solution. Tencent is ready to go. So, and we were ready quite some time ago, but it's literally our partners who need to be ready to play out the same content in different versions. So that's the case in China. And then the third development that we're starting to tackle now is the development of live. In other words, to process a signal that comes in real time. This could be a sports event, this could be a live television show or a music concert, whatever, to take that content, ingest it, analyze it, do the placement, and push it back in the stream with very, very little latency, is the next game changer that we're working on. So what I would like to play now, and that's, I have one more slide actually, after that, is really a video that will give you a flavor on how we're taking the music proposition to the market across genres, across platforms. So let's go. Okay. So on this very upbeat video, my last slide, you might have seen that we announced last week that we are now listed in the US. This is a move that we actually had to make. We got a lot of interest from the US, from investors who said, yeah, we like what you're doing, we believe in it, we would like to buy shares, and found themselves in paperwork, etc. And said, yeah. And so easing the access for the United States is absolutely key for us, especially when you consider that our core focus is the United States, and we're getting more and more exposure and fame in the market. So it's just a very natural consequence. We would be foolish if we were not to open the opportunity in the US for investors to buy Mirriad shares, which hopefully, or we expect, will add to the liquidity of the stock. Alex, I apologize, we went a little bit over, but we hopefully have still enough time for Q&A.
Stephan, you're forgiven. Thank you very much for Stephan and for David's presentation there. I think it's great to see so much progress being made, and that's really, really encouraging. We've got a few questions that have been coming before, and you're very welcome to ask questions now. There is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please just type your question in there, and we'll come and address those questions in the time that we've got available. So let me just start with the first question that we've got here, which is, you made a decision last year to focus on the US market. Can you talk about the progress you've made there, and how big are sales from this market?
Yeah. David, maybe you and I can split the answers, if that's okay. So yes, we took the decision last year. The US was underemphasized, and let me just quickly repeat how important the US are, because this is where the advertising market is, I don't know, 70, 80 billion just for television and video. So it's the most meaty market. There's the most, it's the most like margin strong market. And as you all know, the main platforms need to, if they succeed in the US, right? And we have all the entertainment companies, and everybody is there. So we had to move that. We started last April, completely new team. And as you've seen, we are very, very far now in terms of, getting close to a signing and so forth. Revenue-wise, and David will give more details, we've really started booking campaigns earlier this year, and then COVID came. So clearly, we lost 3 or 4 months, but we're now getting back in shape there. But I'll leave the details to David.
Thank you, Stephan. So the segmental breakdown of revenue shows in the interim statements that I mentioned that are on our website. So revenue for the first 6 months in the US was £62,000, which is an increase of 125% year on year. So we're talking fairly small numbers here, but as Stephan said, this is a market with enormous potential. So it's really about the potential of the market that we're excited, not about what we're actually generating right now.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you, Stephan. Second question here, you recently announced a US listing. Do you have any US institutional investors, and are you planning a roadshow to meet US investors?
So the first answer, the answer to the first part of the question is no. And David will correct me if I'm saying something wrong. We actually have already met some investors not so long ago. As you know, we've changed brokers. We went with Canaccord earlier this year, and one of the reasons was actually that Canaccord also operates in the US. So with them, we've started meeting some investors a few weeks ago.
Okay, thank you. The question came in here about the video, the music video. So you seem to be very excited about the opportunity from music videos.
Mm-hmm.
What's behind the optimism? Is this already a revenue generating area? How big could this market be? And can you give any artist names that have actually used the technology in their videos?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. Where does the optimism come from? The optimism comes from the fact that this is an industry that definitely needs Mirriad. So the industry needs Mirriad, but the world of advertisers needs music. So bringing these two factors together, and it's just like badly in the positive sense, right? Because the music, as I've tried to explain earlier, is the music industry is really in need of revenue. Most people think that artists, eventually become very rich through Spotify and what have you. Not, the truth is different, right? There's not a lot of money to be made for the artist. Also, when they run music videos on YouTube, the bulk of the revenue goes to YouTube themselves when there's ads on the right-hand side and so forth. So it's all these, as a pre-roll, but it's all these things. There's a real urgency. But the other piece is just thinking about, where communication and engagement is going in the future. And we need to, and we know this, by the way, from big brands who talk about them having to become part of the journey of consumers, and music plays a huge role in there, and it has not been emphasized enough in the past. So we are actually feeling very, very bullish about that. It's early days. We're taking it to the market. We have had one big request, which unfortunately got stopped through the pandemic and other reasons, but we're picking up again, so we will be getting there. Major artists, we don't talk about artists so much because we are trying, as we go out to the market, we're trying to, and this should not sound now like, oh, he's downplaying because they have no names. No, that's not true. Actually, you would be surprised which names we can get access to, because the record labels are telling us that we can. We're also in touch with the #1 artist management company and many other companies. We have access to top-notch artists. The truth is that we don't talk so much about it because our approach is not an artist-related approach, but it's actually a genre and channel approach. So we are taking the artist-based approach is all about endorsement. That's old school. That's not what we do. We are going for the approach where a client says, I want to reach, I don't know, 1 billion viewers, or I want to generate 1 billion views. Here's the budget, please distribute it across whatever, hip hop. And then we will be doing our job. And there will be some top-notch artists in there, and there will be newcomers in there and so forth. So that is our approach, which from what we're seeing from the advertiser side is exactly bang on, because they don't want to be associated with one prominent #1 artist. That being said, you could look up, Alex, you call it Codaline, I call it Codaline, which is a very small project, or a small project we did earlier a couple of weeks ago. An Irish band from Be Unique. We're partnering with Be Unique, which is the record company and the publishing company. It's just one example, but I don't want to put out the big names now. Frankly, it would not be appropriate for me. But there are some very, very big names we have in our roster.
Okay, understandable. We've got a couple more questions that come in, and just a reminder, if you do want to ask a question, please type it into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So here's a question. It's about the technology. It's about, this is the first time I've seen the company. Is it possible to embed into live content as well as previously filmed content?
Yeah. So a very good question. So far we can process recorded content, and the beauty of what we do is that literally there's almost no limit as to where we can put things, right? We have utter flexibility. And we are very fast, because the technology itself, I tried to explain that with the Academy Award, it operates very, very fast. So as a matter of, we can, if we're well organized, we can do things in a matter of hours. Now, a matter of hours is not fast enough for live. And that's why I tried to explain in one of my last slides, is that we're working on the live real-time solution. so that we can enable live sports, we can live entertainment and so forth. So that's in the making. I don't want to give a timeline. I mean, we've tested the solution as such as understanding if the platform can actually process the signals, in real time, and it can. So we have, in a way, you could say we have a MVP already in place. But now we need to really work on the solution itself. It will require, testing, integrations with live signal providers, etc. So this is not a totally trivial thing, but if we get that right, we will be very far ahead. Because again, if we are able to offer, which at its core, that's what our technology is about, a totally independent solution. So whatever signal we ingest, we will be able to process it, regardless of where the camera moves and what have you not. Then wow, we will be changing the game again.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question here on the balance sheet and capital employed, saying here it looks as though pre-listing 32 million was raised in funding rounds and 2.48 million in grants received. And then last summer raising nearly 15 million, and you've got 13.3 million pounds remaining. That's quite a lot of capital employed to create 1 million of revenues. Can you grow the company to cash break even with the current balance sheet, or are any more cash calls required?
David?
Thank you very much. So I would say that the capital that was raised historically has been used in order to create the tech that we now have. And we were very clear when we listed how much had been invested in the tech in order to get it to the position that we can run, for example, 40 campaigns in a single month in China. So what we've done is we've built a very scalable technology with the capital that we raised, and we have proof points to demonstrate that to investors and to customers. What we can do now is we can scale the business on that technology platform, which is protected by 19 patents, and there are 19 in process. So that was the historic focus of the company. Now we're focusing on scaling up operationally. We've never said that the last fundraise we did would necessarily get us to break even in terms of cash flow. It will depend on how quickly we can generate revenues from new customers, particularly in the US. So what we have said is that we have enough cash on the balance sheet certainly to get us through to the latter part of 2021. And that gives us a period between now and then to see how fast the business can scale.
Okay, brilliant, David. Thank you. And I guess a related question that's come in here, tilted towards operating leverage, which is, you've done a great job in controlling costs. And as the business accelerates, what spend will you have to make to manage the growth, and how should operating loss to profits develop?
Okay, so there's probably two parts to that. The first part is on the gross margin side. So we've said historically that we are working towards a gross margin of around 75%. And the determinants of that gross margin from a cost perspective are the amount of technology we have and how much of it is automated, and then the number of people that we employ, and things like QA, etc., which is, I think some of the people on this call will know, we have a production base in India, in Mumbai. So it's very, very cost effective for us to apply a mix of people and tech. And obviously over time, that mix will change. So there's more tech and less people. And therefore we expect our gross margin to improve. In terms of the core chunk of cost in the business, that's sitting in the G&A lines, if you like. What we've said is we are match fit now in terms of we've done the restructuring the business, we have controlled the costs, and we believe that the business has the ability to scale based on that existing cost base. So I'm not saying we won't add anything to our cost base, but what I am saying is it shouldn't materially change over time. So the business effectively, like many media businesses, has a very high kind of gearing ratio. So as revenues scale, you should see that translate into EBITDA and ultimately into profit. So we're there. We don't have to add an awful lot more costs now. We can run an awful lot more revenue through this business with no real increase in cost.
Fantastic. Again, going back to some of the technology now, could your technology replace actors in adverts? So instead of scrapping an expensive advert because of an artist issue, like potentially bad publicity, could you in fact replace the artist? And to follow on from that point, is there an opportunity to have different actors in adverts in different geographic areas?
So that is something which, yeah, I mean, theoretically we could do it. I mean, you've seen Natalie Portman dancing and so forth, but that's not our model anymore, because it just, how can I say, the revenue, this would be a production job and less a media job. And what we're interested in is really doing the media job rather than the production job. And so, how can I say, the ratio in terms of the hours spent in that case, because the technology is now geared towards something else, versus the revenue that can be generated is totally disproportionate. I think there's an interesting question though in there in terms of how can I say, the regionalization of creative assets, and that is something that down the line will come our way. You might have observed in the China video how we can literally transform walls and all these things, not the moving piece, so not the actor, but it needs to be sort of more of an object kind. So basically transforming these views is something that the technology is able to do, you know, on a pretty automated level. So and more, and eventually at some point almost 100% with some Q&A with human labor, and that is actually an interesting market. So the question is bang on. It's just not the artists themselves or the actors themselves. The side effect, I do have an issue also, frankly, with doing these things, because then it takes us immediately into a territory of deep fakes, which is not really what we're into.
Okay, thank you. We've got one more question that's come in, and I think we've probably got time to take this, but it says, sure. Is the idea to replace traditional product placement in filmed content, for example, the Omega watches in James Bond, or is the Mirriad technology complementary to this?
Yeah, it's not a or, frankly. I think there's always going to be a space for product placement. And when you think about product placement as something that is, the product is scripted in the drama. So there's a role for, you know, now it's Omega, but Sean Connery and the first Rolex, what was it, Submariner. So there's kind of a role written into the script, and there's obviously many more examples than that. Fine. Our approach is different. It complements at times, but actually it really revolutionizes the whole thing, because the traditional product placement approach is complicated. You need to sit together with the script writers. You need to make sure that during the filming it is placed properly, and at times it's too prominent, etc. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not easy. What we do is much more contemporary in terms of we are offering clients, advertisers to place their brands in a very powerful manner in the content, right? With full control, because we can take it in and out. We can place it on the left or we can place it on the right. And so you get the point. And especially, just to finish off my response here, in the area of music video or music in general, and music artists are very, not all of them, many are difficult, right? They have to control, etc. And they don't like to have an object in their hands and what have you not. And as these management companies and the artists see what we do, they go like, oh my God, this is crazy. You guys just place an ad in the background or do something. This is so subtle. This is so elegant. Bingo, let's go for that. So you see, we see a lot of advantages and like real killer arguments as to why actually what we do has the ability to scale, and it's just way more superior. On top of the fact that we've also measured in some occasions that the placement with Mirriad, just from an advertising impact, it's much stronger than the traditional product placement piece, which eventually lacks a little bit of credibility. So, but I would not, you know, product placement in its form is not dead. but it's not, the scaled solution. I think what we have goes way beyond that, and is the new standard.
Well, it certainly sounds very exciting. It certainly sounds like you made a huge amount of progress this year. So thank you very much for updating us today. That brings us to the end of this webinar with Mirriad. And if you have any questions that haven't been answered today, you can always send those into info@yellowstoneadvisory.com. Our next webinar is actually this Wednesday, the 16th, when we have Checkit presenting their half-year results. So thank you again for attending, and see you soon. Goodbye.